Butt Kicker Gamer 2. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced Sim Racing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-Box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware. And that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
After 4 races, the battle for the championships in the PRL's F3 series powered by VCO have become a combination of pairs. In the pro class, Connor Wagner and David Holland have traded top spots in their respective starts throughout the campaign, while Turner Schroll has slowly allowed Takeshi Kita to sneak his way into the conversation after 4 rounds. But today, we reach the halfway point of the season. It's the Red Bull Ring here on RaceSpot and VCO. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside me in the booth for tonight's action is Lorenzo Bonder, along with our producer Tyler Maxson, as we welcome you to Austria tonight. Lorenzo, it's been an exciting season so far, but the pressure is on for drivers here at the Red Bull Ring.
Absolutely, Justin, especially if we're to compare Oulton Park with Red Bull Ring. Tracks with 2 different dynamics. So one track, you don't have a lot of overtakes, even though you had the faster layout. Now you have a track that is wide, open, and fighting for dive bombs and overtakes like the Red Bull Ring. So it's going to be packy from start to finish. I think the strategy to go is when late do you pit in, how fast do you get out?
Lots to talk about when it comes to your schedule coming into this evening as we make our way to the picturesque facility in the Red Bull Ring tonight. It's a racetrack that comes right after Oulton Park, which brought plenty of attrition in some points of the last round. But of course, when you look at the schedule, the second half of the season, not going to make things easier, Lorenzo. If you want to do well here tonight and for the rest of the championship, you better execute if you want to set up that momentum for the rest of the point forward.
Hey, especially given the fact that we started with 2 fast tracks in the second half of the season with Phillip Island and Spa-Francorchamps. Then you go into tracks like Zolder, and then you go into Gilles-Villeneuve and Road Atlanta, which are more bunched up. That can make overtaking more complicated, so you need to perform in this race and the next 2 races.
Of course, we mentioned the championship getting towards a battle of pairs for the most part so far. When it comes to some of the shuffling, there's a lot to talk about that in just the next moment. When it comes to this schedule, though, we remember the format, seeing things battle. We'll talk about format in a moment. Here's a look at the standings. Wagner over Holland, currently 129 points for Connor Wagner, coming back from a penalty. David Holland took his drop last round with a DNS last time out. Don't forget about Caleb Petrie. He is slowly trying to make it a threesome for that battle, up towards the top of the standings in the pro side. When it comes to the AM side, meanwhile, Turner Schroll is leading the point standings, but is coming off a rough race, which allowed Takeshi Kita, who picked up the W, to close in by 28 points. Richard Swindells is slowly joining the conversation to 29 points back. Ryan Punchdell, Frankie Arvello also in the conversation. And the early going 5 drivers looking to join that conversation, what so far has appeared to be the pair. Speaking of teams, though, Hardpoint by Delta Sport have been dominant. 233 points, lead the way in the standings, 43 points over Indy Autosport. Talk Racing Proton, Ace Racing Team, TQ Engineering, the top 5 in the standings. 13 different teams have taken the green flag throughout this season of competition. But with your format, remember it's open setup for this series, 50% the fuel, 40 minutes up on the clock, or laps, in this case 27, will be on the board.
Yeah, especially given the format that we can see Red Bull Ring, 10 corners, very high pace, very fast. Draft over here is basically present from turn 1 to turn 0, basically, Justin. So you're gonna be under threat the entire time if you're the guy ahead of the pack. If you're following, you're gonna have to mark yourself, see who's coming, try to fight the positions against you, and fight the ones that are ahead of you. So you're gonna be basically trying to escape the draft, but here it's very difficult.
It should be an intriguing night here at this picturesque facility here at Austria. I'd like to take the time to remind you that tonight's action is powered by VCO, the virtual competition organization. Tonight's coverage is also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Tonight also brought to you by RaceLab apps. RaceLab helps you improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Tonight also brought to you by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products, incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. And by Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting more than 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Taking a look as qualifying is underway, 30 minutes of group qualifying up on the board, and it's David Holland at the top of the charts currently with a 1:24.5. Ron Clenard currently second, Connor Wagner, Ryan Punchdell, Kale Petrie the overall top 5, and Am Driver once again picking up the tempo early in the session, Lorenzo, as these drivers look to start off strong here just past 2 p.m. in Sim.
Especially given the fact that the top 3 are basically from Delta Sport. So one following another, trying to follow a little bit of the draft train. Well, we saw that in F1. We saw that basically in real life F3s and F2s. So this is how you execute, right? You try to stay within the draft, give about 0.8 of a second to about a second at best, so you can actually get that dragon not too much arrow wash coming into turn number 5 and 6 respectively. And other than that, to just try to maximize your lap towards the end, and that's how you get a really good qualifying. But I think we're gonna be seeing those times come down maybe the next 5 or 6 minutes, depending how the car goes, because it takes time for you to build up that rubber, right, Justin? So once that rubber gets up, we should be seeing 24 lows, so maybe 23s given the circumstances.
Very curious to see if that indeed becomes the case with this racetrack, because here's the tough balancing act with even the rubber to factor in. It's a track that's having temperatures at 116 degrees Fahrenheit currently. The air temp 81 degrees Fahrenheit, so very hot. Start off this session. We'll see if they drop down. But it's also a track, mind you, where when it comes to off tracks, they can also be pretty higher up here, because it's a tough track to avoid incident points, even though this is a track with some four-wheel exception points around the majority of the corners.
Yeah, basically the most biggest ones, you guys can see that final line going to turn 0, turn number 10. If you catch the 4 tires off into the side of the track, you basically got an off track. And if you touch the red AstroTurf, basically you can get up to a full second of slowdown, and that would kill your lap entirely. And during the race, that would be even worse if you are in a close battle. So you need to be very accurate how you actually get a quality lap, and for this track specifically, I think qualifying matters the most.
28 entrants currently setting times in this qualifying session. For reference, Holland and Wagner still 1-2. Tyler Campbell has jumped up to 4th in this session. Still keep in mind, track position can be critical for some. Campbell in particular has been an emphasis of that. We've seen how crazy his race at the end was at Oulton Park today, looking to prevent a few spins he had at the end of that last round.
Yeah, because if we are to compare Oulton Park again, right, with a track like Red Bull Ring, there will be attrition, especially in the first, maybe I would say 3 laps, where everything gets confusing. We're still in the pack and you want to move up. So of course, doesn't have the same radius of corners that Oulton Park has. I think bar for maybe turn number 1, where turn number 1 Oulton Park is slightly wider and a little bit of a tail slide for Tyler Campbell as he try to finish up the lap. But no, unfortunately, that is not going to happen.
Off the track at Spielberg and off the circuit indeed by 3 car lengths. As they gather it back up, Justin Agretti, we're taking a look towards inside the draft of him is Connor Wagner, who is out taking laps. David Holland finishing up his last circuit of 6. So we'll see if Wagner's able to continue this back and forth trend for the pole position that has started to form up. They, as a championship duel, have dominated the pole spots. Connor Wagner, 3 of the first 4 poles have gone his direction.
Yeah, and it's not surprising to see this mix-up between Connor Wagner and David Holland. We saw, I think, dated back to when we broadcasted the F3s in the official series in iRacing, Justin, how dominant these 2 guys are in this car. They're savants around this car, probably one of the best around the F3 community in iRacing. So it would take something extra, a guy like Klenar, maybe Campbell, to try to get within that fight and fight for it. But those 3 are like at the top of their form.
Been a very solid run so far for the top 2 on the board indeed, as well top 3 should say, separated by about a couple 100ths, if not a couple 10ths of a second. But you mentioned as well the speed of some of the others. Ryan Punchtel, top running AM driver, is looking for a top 5 in this session overall. Nick McLaughlin, who we've seen do well at Suzuka, is in second as well in AM class, top 10 on the board.
Yeah, and I think for the AM class is going to be really interesting because you really might not have a clear favor right here except for Pushtel. Even though his lap time right here might be good, we cannot measure the race pace. So I think for the AM class, if we keep a very close thread of cars following one another, I think what is going to be the race decider might be, like I said before, how late you come into the pit lane, and can you cut that time off when you're actually coming out of the pit lane, because sometimes the overcut over here can work wonders to your favor, because the undercut, you might be battling on your cars and you might lose time in the process. So let's see. It's going to be an interesting battle.
It's going to be a very intriguing battle, I think, throughout the race as a whole today. As we've seen, Turner Schroll is also in the top 10 overall. We're taking a look at one of the TQ engineering machines. This is McLaughlin. And it's been intriguing. The consistency has been around the map in F3. He picked up the tempo again as one of the top drivers in GT competition a couple days ago on the Tuesday. But on this side, it's looking like the momentum he built back up from there after some bumping and banging to get a top run in his class has built back up here today in the F3 car.
Which is good to see, of course. McLaughlin, I think, feeling comfortable with the car. Again, this is a track that I think once you get around a few laps, normally we see if you can survive 5 minutes around the F3 in any track, once the tire builds up the heat and you are within a relative good reach of putting the laps in the car, I think you can find your strides pretty quickly if you find the right lines. But apparently McLaughlin just butchered turn number 1. And we're gonna see these drivers driving that sausage curve pretty much, and maybe riding it because that corner, if you take even a slightly off angle into it, you're basically butchering your entire turn number one, and then if you're battling for positions, you completely kill your moment.
I was about to say, I've seen a few drivers too, when they hit that sausage curb, Lorenzo, snap around and smash the race cars. How difficult will it be to make sure you don't become that driver who cuts into the tire barriers and slams into the wall after touching the sausage curb today out of Niki Lauda?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, because I think I would say this is one of the 3 most difficult corners in the track. I think I would say 9 and 10 are probably also very difficult, because 9 and 10, they are very, they have such a certain flow around the track. And you can see Palacio, perfect example right there. Thank you so much, Tyler Maxson, for those images to provide how difficult you can be. But I think that in that case, I think it was just over accelerating, over revving too much on the exit, and that's something that can happen in these cars if you're not careful enough.
That was through turn 3 indeed, one of the trouble spots expected today, one of the hard passing zones as well, where we may see hard dives to the right side of the racetrack. Wagner and Holland are both on the track. Wagner has not been able to jump on top of Holland in terms of the pylon so far since the early portion of the session. Wagner did have the quicker practice time in the 1:24.4s though. So Wagner does have a little bit of pace he can get out of this car possibly if he can gather himself up. He is picking up a fair bit of off tracks or near off tracks though, heading up to this lead up. No draft either for the run up towards turn 2 and turn 3 as he rides a bit of the curb, just avoiding a potential incident point.
Yeah, and you can see very clean line despite the tail slide that comes into turn number 1, because it's a uphill crest 90-hander turn. So you come into turn number 3, deep braking, you clip that curb. You cannot clip way too much. If you clip way too much, the car bounces off and it immediately spins around. So very good exit on turn number 3. Let's see how he handles 4, 5, and 6.
Nice and smooth off through 4. Hits a little bit of the curbing with the right part of the underbody. Of note, his top competitor for the top of the board has pulled into the pit lane yet again to be able to reset things, David Holland. And the interesting thing with a lot of the drivers here when it comes to today, some drivers, they've had stellar race pace this season. Renzo, not so much in the qualifying, vice versa. Wagner has gotten an off track and he's not liking what he's seen, so he's backed it down.
Yeah, that turn number 8 exit can be so brutal. If you catch just a little bit, let's just say you're touching the sand, right? And if you slightly touch the sand, or if you slightly go off right, you're gonna see over here in Frank Carvella as he's gonna go into turn number 8 right now at the exit. There you go, bam. If you go a little bit to the right hand side into that AstroTurf, and basically just merging into the sand, you get that off track, kill yourself about 0.2 of a second in terms of momentum, and you can be caught up by other people, and you immediately abort the lap, and you have to basically reset all over again for you to get a good launch.
The lap did count in that case, but it was 0.4 off Frankie Orvella's top time. Of note for the AM class pole, as Orvella nearly loops it around, McLaughlin and Punchtel are within 7/1000ths of a second from each other in terms of the AM class's top spot, so keep an eye on that battle for the top of the board for that respective class, currently in the heart of the top 10. Speaking of drivers zipping their way around the circuit though, going on board, this is Eric Placio, who is currently 8th on the board, 125 flat, the first of the drivers in the 125s.
And Wagner just aborted his lap again, by the way, off screen. Just got a very massive understeer out of turn number 8. Again, touching the AstroTurf way too deep and has to abort the lap. And I don't think he's gonna, he has enough time to do his qualifying lap.
Approaching 10 minutes to go in the session, plus the runoff time for drivers who are completing their current lap. They're able to get early enough for said lap to be able to try and bump up the time. Speaking of drivers from TQ Engineering, Steve Giori looking solid so far, 11th overall, but he's got plenty of traffic ahead as he aborts the lap.
Yeah, it looks like if he wasn't a fast lap, I probably would have avoided it, not because you have the traffic up ahead of you, but also you just took turn number 7 way too wide. So you go into a wide entry, and for you to make up into the late apex and try to have a really good exit and minimize the time loss would be too hard. Let's see what Takeshi Kita, who's the race winner from Alton Park, is going to be doing on his fast lap. Very good entry to turn number 6 in the time being.
His nickname is Mr. Sneaky for a reason though, Renzo, because one of the big challenging marks for the Atomic Racing driver for the Proton side of the camp has been qualifying. Kita, every round this season, has had to come from near the back or from the back of the pack from a poor qualifying session to come away with either a podium or a top 5. Last time, you mentioned it there, it turned out to be a victory that Takeshi Kita snuck his way towards.
Yeah, it was a race, like you said before, had its fair share of emotions, right, and its fair share of attrition. Can't wait to see what is it going to be over here as he starts his fast lap, and so far so good. A very clean lap for this first third of Takeshi Kita's lap at the time being.
To be able to get up to the rest of the AM's top drivers, 124.9s. His best is a 125.5 so far in this session. And we've talked about it at length throughout the season. Atomic Racing started off with a nightmarish beginning of the year, attrition-wise as a group, at the opener. Since then, Atomic Racing has been able to regather themselves as a respective group. In terms of consistency, Atomic Racing Proton, as seen earlier, third in the standings, was the top scoring team, in fact, for Alton Park.
Which is always good if you're looking for positions in the championship. I think both Akita and Ritters had really good races. I think the only off case was Tabin, who actually had a DNF in Alton Park, if I recall correctly. So actually 26th place. Or 26 points into Alton Park, but regardless, it's a race that if we're gonna make a comparison or a similarity, the attrition is just as high over here as is at Alton Park, but the only difference is how wide the track is. Other than that, you have to be on your guard every single second. So the emotion options we could see at Red Bull Ring are probably within the same level, if not a top, a little notch above what we saw at Alton Park.
Punchtail continuing to try and push the tempo, by the way. 125.3, not able to keep up with his 124.9 from earlier in the session. Track is cooling down. Rod Clinard, as things have gone on, has jumped ahead of David Holland at the top of the board by about half a tenth, so back out comes Holland. Clinard looking for his first pole of the season over the next 6 minutes and 50 seconds. And there is now a near tie, in fact, a tie for the AM pole. Frankie Arvello has jumped up to Ryan Punchtail's time.
I was about to mention that to you, Justin. I just saw Arvello doing basically equal pace to Ryan Punchtail, but I think the difference is within the small fractions, because he has just about 0.06 of a second of a faster lap than Nick McLaughlin. So the minimal gaps or the minimal margins of a second that we cannot see in iRacing properly is what's saving Punchtail from being snatched that lead from Arvello.
It's extremely tight up at the top of the pylon, but looking as David Hall looks to try and push the envelope, look to try and regather it up, an hour off track in a row. Connor Wagner is coming back on the track to try and challenge for the pole as well over the next 6 minutes or so. That gives them an estimated total of about 4 or 5 laps to work with to try and see if they can get the job done at the most. And this could be tight for a few of the drivers, even on that lap count, mind you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially given the fact that I would say 3 of your laps or 2 of your out. It's kind of like, I would say, it's the Mercedes strategy, right? You do, instead of one out lap and then a hot lap, you do 2 hot laps, and there would be a hot lap for you to get that proper lap into the board. So it's gonna be an interesting one because that if someone came out of the pit lane right now, you would have to go guns blazing for you to get those 2 out laps and then capitalize on the hot lap with little to none time left.
Holland getting very close to incident points, though, this lap. Just about kicked up some more sand. See if this lap counts. This has also been a section of near incident points on that mark, coming up to 9 and 10. Might have been close to 1. We'll see if this counts. Off under the red stuff he goes, Holland. With 4 minutes and 35 seconds to work with, another invalidated lap. It looks like indeed he did step off in Sector 3.
Yeah, it looks like he stepped out of turn number 10. A little bit of a tail slide from David Holland. He's definitely going to be satisfied about that. And I think Rod Clinard also aborted his lap as well. So a little bit of a drama between the trio of Delta Sport.
In terms of absolutely who will control the command early on, Michael Overbay. We haven't talked too much about Overbay this season. Currently in the top 15 overall, looking to move up in this pro class. Keep up in west of his class's top 10. Currently Overbay amongst those you see with a different look, believe, tonight. It's a TQ engineering paint scheme on Overbay's car. Might be off of the mark either way. Overbay so far, 125.2 to start.
And I gotta say, I quite like that livery. Not gonna lie.
Keep in mind, you see the tag there, X Precision Racing Esports. That spent a stint with the TQ engineering part with that partnership. The interesting thing is, a few other drivers we haven't seen too much of. Moises Caraballo missed the last race, not on track tonight. Overbay missed the last race as well. You also have Michael Diaz, the defending series champion, who has missed the past 3 races on the trot. So stuff is starting to shuffle around, is the point being made here, Lorenzo, amongst those who were contenders last season. So far, out of those who have made every start, we're down to 4 who have made every green flag so far. Wagner, Petrie, Giori, and Campbell in the class.
And That's why we have somewhat of a close battle into the lead of the championship, right? Even though the point gap between Connor and David is quite large, it is 25 points that separate P1 and P2, and then 4 points that separates the P2 and P3. So I would say very close battle. I think that can be decided to the last race if they so desire and pursue that. But other than that, you know, this is what I like. Consistency makes a whole lot of difference in championships like this.
Of note, a 29th entry has just came in. Kevin Santana, who is yet to set a lap time, looking at some of the others try and move up on their times. I didn't improve last time. Eric Placio looking to improve on his time. Doesn't. That's an invalidated lap coming across. Behind them, David Holland did not improve, was on a warm-up. So several drivers coming up to the final 90 seconds here. This likely the last chance for Holland.
How fast he actually took off out of his time and going to turn number 1. The car looked slidey, and he had to counter maneuver a little bit. Deep braking, a little bit of a lockup going to turn number 3 there, Justin. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I think he needs a very good exit out of 4, 5, and 6 if you really want to cut that time out of Rod Klinner's lead.
Half a tenth, still that difference on the board. Holland. His warm-up was a 129.1 as talked about. He is leading a pack of cars currently, with Richard Swindell's close by, with Frankie Orvel getting the draft off of a teammate. Near off track, might have got some sand there. Yeah. Oh, and look at that. Campbell's jumped up to second.
Yeah, nice jump from Campbell at the nick of time. 0.02 of a second slower than Rod Klinner. In the meanwhile, I think Holland aborted his lap, going for one last shot.
Might just have enough time to go for one more chance here at the end of the session. During the runoff time, 20 seconds on the board, he will get the chance. So right now, to get the pole, he needs a 124.444 or around that ballpark. This could be down for the pole. Wagner is also trying to go for one more attempt as the checkered flag starts to wave.
Next out of turn number 1, going through 2 and 3. Braking here is important. Deep. I think that is a good exit. That is a good exit. I think that is a 1/10 down on his time right now.
He did get some draft fed to him by Brian Lowe. Lowe also feeding draft to Richard Swindell's. Will that be a difference maker though? Wagner is a bit up the road for reference by a couple corners, trying to work in clean air. Keeping an eye still on Holland, trying to avoid the sand, just about does as he rides on top of the red and white curbing. This has been the bugaboo for Holland, though. It's a little bit tight for the off track. We'll see if this counts.
Still counting.
Wagner come across the stripe. His final lap did not count. Holland nearly snaps it around on top of the red part of the pavement. Kicks up a little bit of dirt this time. Does this count for Holland? Down to a minute of the runoff time. 124.405. Holland top of the board.
I thought it would be close, but I didn't think it would be that close. Nice lap.
406 to the nearest 10,000th. Holland able to celebrate as he is able to pip away the pole as the last driver to set a time. How about that? So as the drivers finish things up and get their cars ready to go for tonight's standing start, just moments away from the green lights to get rolling here today from the Red Bull Ring. So drivers will have the opportunity to make some quick adjustments in their open setups, Lorenzo. It should be a wild start. Holland getting the pole here today. It's his second of the season.
Second of the season for Holland, but he cannot rest because Tyler Campbell, I think if he gets a really good start, he can contend against Rod Klinner going to turn number 1, 2, and 3, and this should prove a wild first lap. Hard point by Delta Sport not getting 1, 2, 3 is kind of big for this round. Let's see what the number 37 does. I like numbers 37 on the field.
1, 2, and 4, in fact. Here is a look at your starting grid as David Holland, 124.406 to nearest 10,000th with Rod Collinard, second. Tyler Campbell for Team Watson Racing waves hello from third with Connor Wagner in fourth. Patria and Giori, your top six. Seventh tonight goes to Eric Placio, and then there's the AM class Hornets Nest. Ryan Punchjo, Frankie Arvello, Nick McLaughlin separated by 7 1,000ths of a second. Punchjo and Arvello tied in the nearest 10,000th bracket. Justin Negrete starts behind them with Max Shapley in the 12th spot. 13th position goes to Colin Hefferin. Then it is Turner Schroll having a start in the mid-pack 14th. Then it's Michael Overbay, Leo Lern, the top 16. Brian Lowe will start alongside Floyd Kerr. Kerr 17th, Lowe in 18th. Takeshi Kita starts 19th alongside in a teammate from Electron and James Carter. Joey Tebben, Richard Swindell, Stephen Ritters, Guillaume Paven, the top 24. The rest of your starting grid on screen includes Michael Blaze at the back of the pack with Peter Newhook, Brad Miller, Ross Cato, and Kevin Santana did not get to set a time during the session. 29 entrants here today. The last of the drivers are making their way to the starting grid now as we wait for Peter Newhook to return to the field. He'll start from the pit lane. Everyone's all set to go. 40 minutes, 27 laps from the Red Bull Ring are underway from Austria. And a good launch for David Holland, able to prevent any attack from Ron Clinard. On the curbing goes the battle for third. One car goes into the wall. Everyone else starts to stack it up, and the big one coming out through Niki Lauda. At least 3 or 4 cars having to stop on the track.
Yeah, I'm looking at Turner Schroll, Peter Newhook, and Floyd Kerr involved in the incident, and David Holland going off wide. Does it get a slowdown over this? I don't know.
Huge for the points with Turner Schroll, who was the points leader entering tonight, remember, and didn't have the benefit of a drop possibly after the troubles last time out. This could become the drop. Meanwhile, Hornets Nest starting to form up for about 4th or 5th on back. Amongst those trying to hold on, Tyler Campbell, who has fallen back. Eric Placio has moved forward 2 positions to start.
Yeah, he dropped back after getting attacked by Connor Wagner going to turn number 1, and it just felt like dominoes right after that. So Campbell from 3rd to 6th in 1 lap. This is awful for the number 37, but still within the contention for a top 5 spot at the time being.
Let's take a look at what happened at the start of this first lap. Turner Schroll, he licked the stamp. Unfortunately, the mailbox said no, and the mailbox said big time no.
He just said, I'm going to make a return right here, and that return wasn't favorable for other people.
Turner Schroll collected up with a teammate in Floyd Kerr in that. More trouble builds up. That's Richard Swindell spinning around with Guillaume Paven. And Paven trying the flick spin, as you've seen there, is attrition building up with some of the AM drivers, Lorenzo.
Yeah, not only that, but you were talking about Tyler Campbell. Something happened to Tyler Campbell. His car is all kinds of bent up, so he has big issues going around the track and dropping like a rock so far.
So multiple problems. Campbell has mandatory repairs and is trying to let everybody go. Chassis damage as well as wing damage on Campbell's car from the top 10. And that's how break up the packs already, to where 3 teammates have pulled away by nearly 2 seconds from 4th and 5th. And then it's another 2 seconds to the battle for the AM class lead, with Punchjo trying to play defense.
And if you're, I'm gonna actually refer this question to you, Justin. You know, you're earlier on in the race. You just completed lap number 2. You're going to lap number 3. Do you go for an offensive as we see the replay of what happened? Maybe to Tyler Campbell going to turn number 3. Oh, and just gets fully collected on the side, on the right side.
I believe that was Giori within the range there, possibly in that situation. Check that. McLaughlin also in the range. They're able to keep going, but as we've seen throughout the season, Lorenzo, These launches could be your best opportunity for passes before it becomes the draft trains, such as this one we start seeing form. Amongst your AM leaders, Punchtail, McLaughlin, Arvello, you also have Michael Overbay, Justin Negretti, Caleb Petrie, Colin Heffernan, all in this train. This is 6 to 12 overall on the racetrack. Bit of a checkup and a slide off. Overbay under the right side of Arvello, who's dealing with wing damage.
Yeah, and it's gonna be painful. The one thing you really don't want in a track like this, where it's high speed, you need that downforce on the front side. Otherwise, you're gonna get massive understeer and loss of performance on the drag as a front wing. You lose about the full second if you get a bent up wing. So Arvello just needs to be on survival mode right now. I don't know, even if you pit at this time is actually good for you. Hang back until the max you can, and then you go into the pit stop.
Still early on in this race, as you already see Arvello dropping to the very back of this pack. That means Bunchtel trying to hold off McLaughlin for the AM lead. Overbay and company have lost touch to them though, especially trying to get around Arvello there with the wing damage. In fact, Overbay trying to defend Justin Negretti here, all battling for this is for position amongst your pro class, and a big snap of oversteer. Overbay.
Yeah, somehow kept it on the track though. Nicely done, even though he lost the position in the process. And somehow, some way, looking how the way he wiggled that car, I thought he was going to go face first into the wall.
Justin Negretti able to take advantage of 3 spots. Overbay still up 6. The tree behind them also moving up another spot after a -5 to start off this respective race. Currently on the 4th lap of the race, Holland, Wagner, and Clarn still your top 3 for those tuning in. And the Delta Sport machines still keeping it nice and cool. The hard point by Delta Sport cars have all worked together to gain an additional 2.5 over Giori and Eric Placio.
And it's not surprising, these cars are basically the like in sync of one another, how each other operate, and a similar setup, if not the same setup for each driver in the team. So having that structure of guys that know how to drive the car, fought against real tough competition within the top splits of F3 in tracks like this, especially high attrition tracks like this, will certainly give you an edge on everybody else. That preparation you already have on the back of your mind compared to everybody else makes a whole lot of difference in a long race like this.
Looking meanwhile at one of the trains still that is in the midst of battling it out, 8th to 12th amongst this train. So 2 different drivers with wing damage in the train right now. Petrie, one of them, you see him trying the harder line, trying to figure out a way to attack Michael Overbay, but does have the left damage to the wing. You see it once again, and there's a little bit more damage with the cones too.
Ooh. And you really don't want that.
Yeah, he definitely didn't want that. That's 15th on the track now to the next pack.
Ooh. And it's a long lap, so you're in a world of pain right now. It's 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and it just drops.
Let's take a look at the replay. You see one little tap. It's now to send him to the sand trap. Now for Petrie to pick up significant damage. Mandatory repairs for the 598. Could take him out of contention the rest of the way. Michael Blazer's also coming into the pit lane right now for an early stop in the 99. We take a look now at one of the packs still. This is Heffernan, Overbay, Lurg now battling it out. Leo Amunsto's promoted to pro class a few weeks ago, remember? Trying to fall behind one of his fellow AM drivers. Let's take a look at another replay though, as guess who? It's Joey. Hi Joey. Bye Joey.
Hi Joey. He's not making us really proud as commentators, isn't he?
For reference, he is a fellow commentator here for RaceSpot, also a longtime commentator in some of the PRL series. It's not been a pretty day and a pretty series season for Joey Devin in F3.
Yeah, apparently the diligence of his Deloitte sponsors are getting up to him, unfortunately. But anyway, let's move forward because we still have action around the track.
Yes, we do. We have plenty of action on the track. One car just went straight off for a moment.
Yeah.
We've avoided contact with the wall there, though. That's Brian Lowe, who's now trying to hold off Kevin Santana, who didn't set a qualifying time.
And I think I saw a car going very wide. Was that Lowe that was going very wide off turn number 9?
The angle just enough to turn it, I believe, there, so there was no incident in what could have been. But we'll say when it comes to Santana, 12 positions gained. That's a lot of spots for one of the others a few weeks ago who was promoted from AM to Pro. Up the road for the lead, Holland, Wagner trying to dart around for a moment. Here comes the run from Wagner. Holland able to defend once again on Connor Wagner.
And this is a battle that we've seen all before, haven't we, Justin? We've seen this all season long, this brewing, this rivalry between both of them. Who's gonna get out on top? And here's the thing, they're being fast while they're still trading positions and trading paints, because Rod Clenard is not able to actually get close to them. Look at the gap is widening, even though they're still keeping it 0.3 of a second from one another.
Still able to run off and away by 0.3 of a second for Cunard specifically. Bit of curving picked up by Wagner. It's not a surprise to see some of the aggression from Wagner because remember, these two usually have a bit of a difference on their fall-off points, where we've seen amongst them one or the other reel in the other driver by pit stop time.
Yeah, and this is a track I think pit stop. If you save your fuel mileage right, I think you can get up to a lap extra on your opponent just by lifting and coasting in a track like this. Let's look at the battle for 10th because I was looking at that on the corner of my eye and looked like a really good lap between Overbay and Leo Lung.
Learned able, or rather not able, to hold off Michael Overbay for the moment. That's for 10th and nearly hits him and spins it. Well, he does say on the wing, needs a new driver. Be patient as there comes Takeshi Kita and Max Chablis amongst those. Frankie Orville also able to avoid. Now it's a battle, in fact, with Chablis as he drives around the outside.
A nice overtake from Chablis right there. I really want to look at the replay. I think it looks like there was small contact, but let's keep on this battle between Wagner and Holland once again, because Wagner has the draft to try to make an overtake on turn number 1, just didn't have the room for a dive on turn number 1. I think this is the moment where Wagner, if he really wants to go aggressive and try to look for one move without losing a lot of time, I think this is it.
For the race lead, though, a major send from Wagner up the inside. Through turn 3, starting off sector 2, the power down quicker for Holland on the left side of the track though. Approaching the pit window already. For those wanting to go for the undercut calls at the early part of the fuel stages, Wagner still wants to go here, tries to cross again.
He gets a better exit right here out of 4. Does he go for the number 5 and 6 move? No, he doesn't. He stays wide into the entry of the turn so he can get a better exit and to try to set himself up.
Here's a look as there's a bit of contact. That was Lung trying to send it.
Yeah.
And instead hits the back end of Michael Overbay's car.
Yeah, a little bit of air on Lung's car, but luckily for him, that air wasn't enough to damage the front wing or the front nose of the car. So he can live to fight another day without too much trouble. He just have to cool down his tires.
Here comes the draft for Wagner as he tries to set up the opportunity. You mentioned the aero wash during the pre-race. Some of that big time coming in though through Nicky Lauda, costing Wagner some time.
Yeah, it's despite not being a high speed turn with a lot of angle, it's a medium corner where you need that entry, and that entry is kind of like one-way entry of sorts, so you're gonna get that wash into the apex of the corner, leading you to the outside, where you must avoid at best the sausage curb so you don't lose time.
These drivers looking to settle it on out still. For reference, McLaughlin is leading Ryan Punchtail for the M-Class lead for 6th spot overall. They're also in a similar difference on the racetrack. Wagner getting very close for Sector 3, though. Trying to move up that 4-car lengths. Not able to close it up, though. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the pit stops being the major determining factor amongst this fight with how tight some of these cars are getting with the aero wash.
And also, I think it is one of the fastest, if not the fastest, pit stop lane in the entire championship. So you have to be very mindful of the strategy right here. And just a quick mention, Clinton's gap was the closest in the end of the previous lap to both Wagner and Holland. So Clinton could come.
Here comes the send again for the race lead for Pro. Wagner forced to left side that time. Holland goes defensive. Holland trying to defend. Wagner trying to get around the lone way for turn 4 and 5. Once again, the cross not there for Wagner.
Yeah, and they're smart enough to not go side by side on turn number 4, because I think we've seen a plethora of movements, not just in iRacing, but in real life, where that move never works out for whoever's on the outside. So good on them for having that awareness.
Quinard, by the way, gaining 3/10 from that one move alone, is nearly back in drafting distance. Approaching halfway for the lap time, 24 minutes up on the board in terms of minutes. They are reaching traffic, it's worth noting. Brian Lowe, Brad Miller are up the road from your overall race leaders and could be within range in the next couple laps here to feed them draft. Wagner not close enough for the launch this time, as Quinard loses all the time he gained from the previous lap.
I wonder if Clinard is being very cautious how he approached turn number 10, and that's why he's losing ground a little bit in comparison to the other drivers. Like I mentioned, there is a small gap on that red AstroTurf where if you take it, you can get a slowdown of 1 second, and if you get a 1 second slowdown in a track like this, you lose the draft. The draft gap delta goes up to 1.1, 1.2 seconds max. So if you lose that, it's completely gone off the rails, and it's very hard for you to catch back if there is a train of cars sharing or trying to battle each other and having draft.
Remember, it's a drive-through if you reach 13 incident points in this series. One driver's already reached it in Brian Lowe, who is amongst those in terms of traffic they have to deal with. Lowe did not serve the black flag, though, this lap. They're about 10-15 car lengths up the road from Holland and Wagner. With 15 estimated laps to go, 22 minutes and 50 seconds up on the clock in the upper left-hand corner. And it becomes the question, with the traffic here, how does that play a factor here? Even if they move aside here, that is still some extra draft you'd have to think for them to get.
Yeah, it's interesting, and to make the matters worse is ahead of them, Brian Lowe. They can see Brian Lowe and right there and Brad Miller. And the problem is they're battling for position right now, as Lowe's going to go for the dive on the inside and is going to get the position from Brad Miller. So they're about to catch in, let's say, 3 or 4 corners, those two guys.
Steven Ritter's just picking up mandatory damage repair. Peter Newhook amongst those having to serve track cuts. So track incident limits are a major factor here. Coming up for your race leader, so is that traffic. Now within 5 car lanes, expecting the number 43 car to have to come in to serve a black flag to avoid disqualification either this time or next time by There it is. There goes low. That leaves just Brad Miller up the road for the race leaders in the close vicinity.
Easy does it.
Very easy does it. Lots of space given with the blue flags. Miller slowing down and off the gas big time. Wagner watches a bobble from Holland. Is the move on again at halfway in the race? Not yet.
Yeah, it would have been. It has to be the dive of the century.
Always going for it. Wagner tried it. Didn't work.
Oh boy. Connor he's making sure I'm eating my the words out of my mouth.
Of note, Ritters with the mandatory repair has spun a second time in the 27. He was running in the teens before some trouble moments ago. Not a factor for your race leaders for the time being yet. All while Holland still has led them all so far. For those tuning in, here is the trouble for Ritters. This is the second incident. He got mandatory repairs for backing up into the wall with the rear wing. His car having major troubles right now in the 27.
And looks like that car is like on a lifeline, so I really don't see him being able to nurse the car back to the end of the race. He might have to take a pit stop if one corner or two corners is too much for him, the way he's in the car and spinning around. So let's see.
Meanwhile, Wagner last time tried to go hard up the right side. He's tried left, he's tried right. Which way does he go this time? Defensive to the right goes Holland. Wagner goes left. Can he make it work on the outside? Nearly crosses up into him. Able to avoid contact, however, as Holland continues to play stellar defense. Here comes the draft back, though. Wagner looking again to make the crossover work. Again, not there. And something's got to give. Or rather, as a driver, when is that giving point? Knowing you've got a pit stop coming up in the next few laps, you feel you're quicker, but you have a driver who is playing superb defense here.
Yeah, that is a great question to do. As Connor goes for a tighter line into turn number 9 and then turn number 10, he's going to basically do his line. Slightly compromised. I think this might open the door for Connor to make a move on turn number 1, Justin.
Here he goes. Wagner's got the pull. Holland's got the defensive line. Into Niki Lauda. Harder on the brakes goes Holland. The crossover attempt from Wagner. Gets the power down quicker. Will this be the move Wagner's been waiting for and has been trying to set up for the past 10 laps? Wagner dead even into turn 3. Holland, right side, holds on, slips back up for the defense. And Quinard is back in the fight within 7/10 of the leaders. Wagner once more, going back left, once again, trying to go back right. This is the best run he's gotten out of the corner, trying to set it up for turn 6.
Can he make it though on the outside? He would need to be side by side and nearly touching wheels.
And now it's a 3-driver battle for the overall race lead, and it's all amongst the teammates. Hardpoint by Delta Sport have controlled this race. The question is, which driver wants to be that competitor for their team, who wants to dictate that the rest of the way? Wagner again trying to set things up. 11 laps to go, 17 minutes to go.
I wonder how Brian Vorse's, which is Hardpoint by Delta Sport team manager's heart rate is right now. If we can get a measurement. Here he goes.
Oh, Holland had a major slow up. Here comes Wagner yet again. This might be it. Holland's been brave in through the braking though. Here comes Quinard with the popcorn seat as they all rumble nearly to the curbs. Holland with the best run out of the All three drivers as Wagner can't do it.
This is good battling right here.
One of the battles of the season. Of note, Nick McLaughlin has crashed from the AM class lead. Ryan Punchtel back up to that point. All while Wagner going back for the pro lead. Again, right side. Again, no dice, turn 6.
Now, my question is, if you're Clenard, do you pit first?
There's a possibility. He's in a good prime spot for the undercut. If he elects to make that decision, he gained half a second last time. Here's a look at what happened to McLaughlin as he loops it around in turn 3. This is for the AM lead.
That's such a shame, and the sausage curb strikes again, over-arriving the car at the wrong moment.
At this racetrack in a similar car a few days ago, seen the exact same situation. It's so easy to turn it around in turn 3. Now a quick replay for some more trouble. Race lead battling side by side, lower corner. One driver slid off the circuit. The others look to battle it out live on the circuit. Holland again, defensive. Clenard now trying to find a way to jump in.
Yeah, that looked like to be Max Shabley from his lap as pit stops are underway. We see Leo Lung. I see Leo Lung and a few other drivers doing their pit stops. So we can see those 3 cars any minute into the pit lane.
Oh, Wagner's trying to peel Holland off the left of the track. Wagner nearly hits his teammate. And that could have been disaster. What's the #1 rule when it comes to racing?
Don't hit your teammate.
Exactly.
What is rule number 2?
You tell me.
Respect number 1.
Exactly. Great point. Clenard has gone into the pit lane. Yes. So he has taken that call with the undercut, all while the top 2 battle it out. 125-1s for these drivers. Clenard now coming in for his fuel stop. 9 to go, 14 minutes to work with.
And I think also for Clenard, that would probably be the only move available in the cards that for him to be competitive, right? Here we go.
Wagner again showing the wing. Holland continuing to clip those wings. Reference, Clenard just came out behind Nick McLaughlin, 20 seconds back. The pit stop was 22 seconds. So keep that delta in mind with the pit window, expecting drivers to stop this time or next amongst this fight. And Wagner is really backing down the speed all of a sudden to save. See the rumble strips coming across as Wagner has lost time trying to save it through Sector 2. We might see a pit stop this time around for one of the lead cars. Yes, we see it from Holland. Holland from the point has sacrificed the lead. He's come in before Connor Wagner. Rod Clenard is right behind McLaughlin, who has already indicated over the radio he plans to pit as well. Clenard having to burp the throttle. Where does Holland come out in relation to the 45? There goes Holland out of the pit lane. Clenard going to be close. To Nicky Lauda. Holland with a good overcut. Makes it work. Clenard lost about 4 car lengths.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have been on Nick, having Nick McLaughlin in front of him. I really am interested in how much of a time gain for Holland was in these last 2 laps. Let's see I want to see the relative laps once Holland gets a lap or 2 into his car post pit stop. We still have to see Connor Wagner pit though.
Wagner's approaching that lane with a bit of traffic up the road, not enough to factor a stop. Here is a look at Wagner, who takes the bit of the bubble for the pit lane entry. This to decide who's the leader of the race. Down to the final few minutes. Holland last time a 21.7 in the pit lane on the Delta. Wagner coming in through to the pit boxes. Holland coming down the front straightaway. Wagner trying to floor it. 4.6 seconds in the box for Wagner.
Oof.
Oh, it's going to be another drag race, but Holland has the pace on the left side. Full speed. Holland back to the point. Wagner's overcut doesn't work.
Really, if that was like 0.3 of a second or half a second faster for Conor Wagner, that would have been the pit stop. Just a quick reference over here, Justin. David Holland times in the pit lane, 21.9 seconds. Everybody else is in the average of 22.1 seconds, 22.2 seconds. So this shows that Holland's pit stop is right next to the ideal pit stop for what you want fuel-wise, and also into the run of the pit lane, in and out.
So the battle has separated for now between Holland and Wagner. The question is, does it close back up amongst them? About 1 second is the gap. It's also worth noting that M-Class lead is also still fairly tight at about 4 or 5 seconds between Punchdown and McLaughlin, so it may not be over yet between 93 and the 62, since McLaughlin jumped a couple cars during his pit stop despite his spin before the stop.
Yeah. And
Lots to keep an eye on. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say gaps quite widened a little bit, not by huge fractions of seconds, but I would say about 4 to 5 seconds, tenths of a second in average post pit lane. So a little bit surprised to see that. I thought they would be bunched up after the pit stops happen in general in the field, but so far the closest thing we have of battles around the track is Leo Ling and Joey Tabin for 14th and 15th, even though it's not for class.
Still overall, we'll say amongst them. It's the rhythm part of the race now, but it's also towards the end of the race. A bit of sand kicked up Holland. Here comes Wagner. And that's the mistake Wagner needed to get back into it. Holland does. Go ahead.
This might be Wagner's best lap since him setting the third fastest lap of the race so far. It's going to be an interesting one.
Oh, he nearly loops it at least 4 times. 6/10 the gap. Now Holland trying to break the toe. 5 estimated to go. 8 minutes up on the clock. 1:24.3, a personal best for Wagner.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
That would have been the fastest lap of the race had he got a off track.
My goodness, between these drivers, that is also a talking point. Brian Lowe has been disqualified for incident points. The question mark's going to be, will they become a factor for these two with how aggressive they've been battling?
Good point.
Keep an eye on that. Holland able to regather some of the time lost last time by. Still not able to eat into the gap quite yet, though, with the aero wash costing him some time. Holland again kicks up the sand.
Not much of a time loss here, though.
If anything, that gained him time coming out of the corner complex for Sector 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
4 to go. 7 minutes up on the clock. Rod Conard, for reference, has lost 2 seconds to your race leader Dave Holland since the pit stops, after being within a few tenths of a second.
cleaner turn number 1 for Connor Wagner. He's probably got to get to a 10th or 2th in David Holland, going way too deep into the south of Sherburne turn number 1 and 2.
Heavy traffic coming up as well. Keep in mind, you have Steven Ritters, who had mandatory repairs to fix. Ross Cato up the track. Could become a factor amongst this pack. 3.5 to go. Wagner continuing to nail these exits in the middle sector now. After struggling with them earlier on, he seems to pick it up after a few laps are down compared to what we've seen from Holland in the sector.
Yeah, just taking a quick look, where is Ritters in comparison to Holland? Ooh, okay, it might not be a huge factor. If he gets them, might be at the end of the start finish line, going to turn number 1 if he hasn't gone into the pit lane. So the time loss for Holland's not going to be way too big yet.
Oh, and Ritters tries to move over and nearly stops on the track. Holland trying to follow the draft and had to check up for him. Lost a 1/10 of a second, Holland did from it.
Ooh,
Here comes Wagner with the blue mirror and the blue helmet, looking to try and charge up. Now within 3/10, 2.5 laps to go, 5 minutes to work with. Now within a car length. And only one car that could potentially be a factor in these final few laps, in Ross Cato, who's running in 20th position. The rest of the track clean and clear for the battle for the overall race win.
If you're Wagner, you know you have about 25 points in your to try to conquer in your competition. You go for it. You are the points leader. Do you risk losing an entire race and a lot of points just for you to get into P1?
And that's with penalty points. You have to consider that he's got this points lead with. Remember, there is a drop in the series. Holland's already taken it. 2 to go.
Absolutely.
More sand being kicked up on the corner exit of turn 10. Michael Blaze coming into the pit lane. Oh, wow. Wagner looks for any way to go for the send for the race win. Still 4/10 back. 4 minutes to work with.
They're going to catch Cato by the entry turn number 3, so I think Cato might slow down in between 3 and 4 right here as they're going to the braking.
Big lockup for Holland.
Oh.
He keeps it just across the safer curb.
I
Here,
honestly thought he was going to spin.
so close to heading across the curbing as well, that could have spun him. Holland going left, Wagner going right, back to the left, trying to go for the cross. Lap and a half to work with. Race coming down in turn to the lap by within a minute. Ross Cato within 3 car lanes is up the track to them though. Or does Cato elect to try and let him go? Cato slow coming out of turn 8, moves to the right. Holland not impacted by the time, Wagner not impacted either. Expecting the white flag this time, less than 3 minutes on the board. The lap count coming up to start lap 27 this time. Barney waves the white flag. Final time around here from the Red Bull Ring. 2 teammates, hard point by Delta Sports, David Holland and Connor Wagner, looking to determine who wins at the midpoint of the season. Wagner the closest he's been throughout this run. Holland goes hard right. Wagner goes to the left. For turn 3, Wagner along the lone way. He hasn't been able to make this work all race. Holland still defends well as they go back down towards turn 4.
Does he go for the side-by-side movement turn number 4? He has to do it.
He's trying it. He's tried the cross a couple times. It has nearly made it work through the turn 6. Wagner not as close this time though. Just to the edge of the tire. Now he tries to go in for something different on Holland. Near side by side, backs it up for turn 7. Gets the power down for turn 8. Coming down to the final corners. Wagner to the left, Holland on the right side. Turns 9 and 10. Wagner goes for the cross. Dives to the right side. The squeeze, near contact. Holland gets the power down. David Holland puts up a strong defensive attack to win over Connor Wagner.
Oh no!
And hold on. That was close on the off track. Holland nearly lifted up the stripe there.
Holland got a slowdown.
Right at the stripe. So we'll have to see which way this goes now. That could mean a big swing for Wagner. M-Class lead, by the way. Ryan Punchtel takes the victory over Colin Heffernan with Nick McLaughlin in third. And the slowdown you talked about, Lorenzo, could be up to 1 second in that section. It was so tight that it could have gone either way in terms of the slowdown with how tight the racing was there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably going to go back on the replay and I really want to go back on the replay and try to take a look if he actually started that slowdown right on time, because if he did, that was right on the nick of time for him to actually save a race win.
Still waiting for results from the sim as the last of the drivers come across the stripe. Max Shabley will be the final driver to cross the stripe here. The difference at the line, and yes, it's now coming into the sim. Holland, 45-second time penalty plus, has just been drop kicked to 11th. It's Wagner who gets the win in the sim.
That's gotta be a punch in the gut. Ooh.
We'll see how race officials determine things with Wagner over Clenarn and Giori. Unofficial, Eric Placio in 4th overall. Then Am lead going to Ryan Punchtel, 5th. Negretti, Overbay, Heffernan, McLaughlin, Kita, the top 10 overall. 8th through 10th, all Am drivers. David Holland unofficially is scored 11th. That is about a time penalty of 46-47 plus seconds, with Frankie Orvello in 12th. Learn, then Tebben, Carter, Swindell, Shapley, Newhook, the top 18. Cato and Blaze lapped at the end. Miller, Stephen Ritters, Campbell, Santana, Lowe, Patry, Paven, Schroll, and Kerr. Your 29 entrants. Personal best going to Wagner, a 124 flat. And a lot of question marks coming in towards that finish. Wow is the best way you can put a Lorenzo to start.
Yeah, this is what you said is what I would have said. You know, wow. I expected somewhat of a drama finish, like somewhat what Andrea Dovizioso did with Marc Marquez in MotoGP, but unfortunately the slowdown is a little bit of a tough one to handle, and I'm sure that the stewards will take a look with some very prying eyes on that result, because that was a really good battle. It's just the limitations of the sim that unfortunately got the worst into David Holland right there.
The race here at Spielberg and the racing in turn can always bring excitement and always brings a little bit of spiciness to it, to say the very least. Drivers getting ready to stand on by for post-race coverage here on RaceSpot and VCO. So we still wait word on that mark, and still some of your drivers are standing on by. Colin Heffernan, Hefsky, is standing by from the AM class, 2nd overall. And now joins us in the broadcast booth, Colin Heffernan. 8th spot overall, 2nd in AM. How are you feeling after today's run?
Pretty fortunate, to be honest. Thanks to Nick for whatever slowdown, or if he ran out of fuel. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, really hot track that thankfully cooled down for us during the race. feel lucky to be here.
So how would you describe the battle with the racetrack? Because for some, it was extremely tight on the off tracks. We had several with slowdowns towards the end.
Yeah, I saw that. I think my approach always was I didn't get an opportunity to practice much this week. So my approach when I saw how hot the track was, it was just boiling. So I said, you know what, be as smooth as possible, keep your tires, and just try to, finish the race. And it looked like it worked out.
And we talked about this a little bit before. Atomic Racing as a whole had that slow start to the season. Now at the halfway point, your teams are in full swing. Electron starting to pick up valuable points with this one, but also Proton doing well. How would you describe the mood set in for Atomic Racing for the second half of the season?
It's great. We have a lot of fun every week coming and doing these PRL races with RaceSpot. So I think we're in a good mental space. I think the racetrack wise, it was pretty tough there in the beginning as far as, especially Ulton's such a car killer. So I think it's all about finishing races and getting qualifying pace up to speed, because you do not want to start in the back half of the pack with so many F3 cars.
Congratulations on the podium in AM today.
Thanks so much.
That's Hefsky, also known by his name, Colin Heffernan, coming away with the top 10 overall, second in the class today for AM. Nick McLaughlin also getting the chance to stand on by. He was amongst those in the 14 incident point club at the end. He's with Lorenzo.
So, Nick, P3 at the end of the race for the amateur class. What it could have been P1, of course, we saw you spinning the car, but other than that, then what do you assess about this race overall?
Nick McLaughlin, do you have a copy?
Hey, sorry. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, all things considered, I'm real stoked to be on the podium. With the self spin and getting a drive through with 2 to go. Yeah, I'll take third. No problem.
Of course, and this is something to be considered. You are in a very good swing in this end of the first half of the championship. You had a good result at Alton Park. You have a good result over here. What can you do now that we go into the second half of the championship in 2 very difficult tracks, then basically have the same flow like in Red Bull Ring, in Spa-Francorchamps, and Phillip Island?
This was a good track. It was a lot of fun, minus the 1Xs. Going forward, I really just got to minimize the self errors. It's still a car I'm learning, so I'm trying to push myself each week. And if I can minimize those mistakes and kind of keep it on podiums, top 5s, sneak a win if I can, that would make a great end of the season.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, thank you for coming over here. I hope you have a really good break, and we'll see you next week at Phillip Island.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Once again, that's Nick McLaughlin coming away with the 3rd spot in AM class, despite some late stage spins in this one. And Lorenzo, it was talked about there. Incident points challenging for many at the very end. That was one of the main themes expected over the course of 40 minutes tonight. It came in a very big way to end off the night.
Yeah, it came in a very big way, especially for David Holland at the very end of the race. And you saw that he tried to slow down the car the best way he could, but for you to slow down 1 second in a short span of meters, and then go for a win to be knocked out of the top 10 is, like I said before, is a punch in the gut. So it's bad for the driver, but other than that, we had really good battles, and Red Bull Ring proved to be a very tough track. Can't wait to see what Phillip Island comes next.
Phillip Island, of course, coming up on July the 28th for reference sake, and that expected to be an intriguing one. You mentioned some of the thought processes with that track. It should be an intriguing one. 9:10 p.m. Eastern time on July the 28th. You can catch that here on RaceSpot and VCO. Quick thoughts, Lorenzo, on Phillip Island.
very fast track, like I said, very similar in terms of overtaking and very tough spots in comparison to Red Bull Ring, and high attrition part, especially the two hairpins after at the end of the first half of the track.
Once again, catch that race spot in VCO 9-10 next week. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. I'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage here for the PRL's F3 Series powered by VCO. Lots of question marks heading to the second half of the season. We'll catch you next time from Phillip Island Circuit. For my co-announcer Renzo Bonner, for producer Tyler Maxon, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening.